take a breath here because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today in regards to playground safety inspections. This is this is an area that's really close to my heart um, because I have kids. Now they're all grown up now and they don't play on playgrounds very much anymore. But I've got a grandson now, and this stuff is important for him as well. I remember as a young family, my wife's from Canada, and so we would take a pilgrimage back to the old country and go and see family up in Canada, and we would do that as a road trip. And we had 5 kids and we're driving long distances. And so periodically we would pull off to the side of pull off the freeway and pull into a town and find a park and go and have lunch and let the kids go and wear out a little energy on the playgrounds that are there. And I remember one time we were up in, I think it was Oregon, one time traveling along, and we pulled into this playground, and one of my kids said to me, "Dad, are you going to inspect the playgrounds before we play on it?" And I said, "Absolutely, I am." Because over the years, I found a lot of really scary stuff in our public playgrounds. In most cases, our playgrounds are awesome. They are great opportunities for us to recreate, to have our kids learn some skills and socialize, and all of the things that go along with those playgrounds. They're great. They bring us together as families. They're fun and exciting things for families to participate in. However, playgrounds are risky, and playgrounds can be deadly if they are if they are not maintained well, if they're not installed well, if and all the different things that we'll talk about. Playgrounds are risky places. Now, some would argue that risk equals fun. And I agree with that to a certain extent, right? We have, if playgrounds were 100% safe, we probably wouldn't play on them. I've told people in the past, well, another family story. I had one of my kids looking at me, looking over my shoulder as I was typing up a report about one of your playgrounds out there. And my son leans over and he says, "Dad, do you, do you get to climb on the playground equipment when you're inspecting it?" And I said, "Yes, I do, son. Yes, I do." That was the most proud my son has ever been of me in his life, I think. He was pretty impressed that I got to climb on on that equipment. But I will say that the only equipment that I play on are the ones that are really dangerous and the ones that I'm saying we need to get rid of. Risk is part of the fun, right? Injuries can happen. They do happen on our playgrounds. And we can't prevent all of those, but we can prevent the fatal ones if we do our duty to inspect those playgrounds and fix those problems. Um, I think we can all agree on this goal of no dead kids, right? That's one of the reasons why I work at the trust, is because of the potential impact that we can have at the trust in protecting our children in the state of Utah and beyond. So let's all agree on that. That's our goal. No dead kids. We can have bumps and bruises because that's part of the risk of playing on the playground, but we want to prevent those really serious things that can happen, fatalities and serious injuries, head injuries, those types of things. Playgrounds are dangerous places, right? They're risky, we said. Almost 250,000 playground injuries go to the emergency room every year, and about 3/4 of those are involving public playgrounds, our playgrounds. Okay, this is national numbers, and hopefully those numbers are far less in the state of Utah because of the efforts that you're making out there. So, some of the major causes of death and debilitating injury that we see in playgrounds are entanglement. If a child gets a rope around their neck, they can become hung. If their clothing gets entangled in a piece of playground equipment when they're at height, they could be hung. Falls can cause serious injuries. Head and neck entrapment. If we've got an opening that will allow the body to slide through, but the head won't, that can result in a dead kid, and impacts from equipment, from other children. Those types of things can also cause really serious injuries. Common problems that we see in playgrounds are non-compliant equipment, things that just shouldn't be used for a public playground. Flaws in our design, how we lay those facilities out, how we install those things. Sometimes it's a perfectly safe piece of equipment, but the way we put it together causes it to not be safe. The lack of inspection and insufficient maintenance are really the key things that will help us prevent serious accidents and injuries in our playgrounds. And each of us out there, if you've signed in for this webinar today, you probably are responsible over one of these playgrounds or at a higher level, making sure that we're doing these things right. Let's take this responsibility really, really seriously. And I'll say this probably multiple times here. Inspections don't happen from the truck. We've got to get out of our vehicle and we've got to go and climb on that equipment. Like my son was so proud of me to have a job that I could climb on playground equipment. Go climb on it, go look at it. Sometimes we have to take it apart, but we got to inspect this equipment. So the question, how do we protect our kids' safety? It comes down to doing regular inspections and taking the appropriate action once we've identified hazards in our play structures and in our parks. All right, there's some standards that we go by in this in the playground world, and this is webinars designed to be a short introduction to help people get going on this. We would love to see everybody out there in the state that has a public playground have somebody certified as a certified playground safety inspector. That would be the overall goal, but we know that's not possible, at least in the near term, to have that. So we got to have people that are somewhat knowledgeable and skilled. Realize that this is a lot bigger body of knowledge than what we're going to talk to you about today, but we're going to send you some resources to help you out. There are some consensus standards. We don't have a law in Utah about playground safety. Some states like California do. But in Utah, we don't have a specific law, so we default to consensus standards. Probably the foremost on that is the ASTM standard. And there are a series of different standards there, and you don't have to memorize all of these things. Just know that there are some important standards there. There's also the Consumer Product Safety Commission's handbook, and we're going to send that out to everybody that signed up. It's just a PDF document that can help you get going the right direction. I would love to send out the ASTM standards, but they make us buy each of them for several $100s each, and so we don't have access to just send those out. However, if you do, we do have the standards here at the Trust, and if you have questions about specific things, Mike and I are both certified playground safety inspectors, and we are more than happy to answer questions, to take a look at your parks, and help you make them safe. The other standard that's out there is IPMA. That's the International Playground Equipment Manufacturers Association, and those are standards regarding the equipment itself and how it's manufactured. The manufacturer requirements are important. Do you have the owner's manual for each of your pieces of playground equipment? There should be a file on each one of those so we have the information that we need so we can follow those requirements. All right, I got to keep going quick because I got a lot of stuff to cover. Here's the picture, just the cover of that CPSC Public Playground Safety Handbook. It's a good resource, and you'll have a copy of that when we send out the notice that the recording for this is up. So you can have that as a reference material. It's free. You can look it up online as well. We're not giving you anything that's not really available out there, but we want everybody to have a copy of that. Okay. So how do we go about performing a playground safety inspection? These playground safety inspections can really be divided into two different types. There are regular inspections and audits. Audits are something that we do infrequently, once a year, maybe a couple of times a year. We're going to go out and really dig deep. We're going to take equipment apart. And we're going to make sure the pivot points are not worn. We're going to make sure everything is functioning as it is. We'll actually take measurements, and we'll look really closely at that equipment to make sure it meets the standards. Well, the other side of that are the inspections, and that's really what we're talking about today. These are frequent inspections that we do to just make sure everything is okay. Starting here in, well, it depends on where you are in the state. If you're down in Washington County, your playgrounds never really get a rest, unless maybe you get a snowstorm here or there. Those playgrounds are busy all year round. So, but for the colder portion of the state, we're going to see a massive uptick in our playground use here in the next couple of months. So we need to be ready for this. We need to go out and do these inspections starting now. So in case we have to replace some equipment, in case we have to do some things to make it safe, we've got a little buffer to do that. These inspections should be done on a regular basis. And what do I mean by regular? Well, it depends on the amount of usage that your playground gets, what regular is. Some playgrounds get really infrequent use. They have a few kids a day playing on it. In those types of areas, I would say once a week when somebody's out there mowing the lawn, we can train our people that are mowing lawns to do these inspections, give them to the checklist, and have them go out and do the inspections when they mow the lawn. We can have somebody else if the lawnmowers don't work. Maybe they're contractors. But what about those other playgrounds? Some of these playgrounds just get beat. There are kids on them all day, all week, and they get a lot of use. Well, we're probably going to inspect those more often, at least maybe a couple of times a week for those really heavy use areas. How do we do that? Well, there's a couple of different ways, and this is the major. Well, actually, I just decided to switch my slides. We're going to look at this one. If you're doing an audit, our MyTrust mobile application is a great tool to help you with that, because it does have references to the ASTM standards. It has references to other things that you can find, or that you might need to know, measurements and so forth, and you can use that. So if you're interested in that, go to your App Store, your Google Play, and download MyTrust Mobile. It's going to look just like this. And then send us an email, either to mike@utahtrust.gov or jason@utahtrust.gov, and we will get you set up to be able to use this application. So this is more for the audits. All right, so let's go back to our regular inspections. We have this form. It's a pretty simple form that you can use to document your playground inspections. We'll send this out with the follow-up email, so you'll have a copy of this. Feel free to take this and change it and make it match what you're doing. You can go in and you can pre-print the parks that you have on there, so people could just circle which park they're inspecting, make it as simple as you can, as you want to. And it's a simple checklist. I really like checklists. That's a great way to help us remember what we're looking at. Okay. All right. I'm going to jump through this. There's a little screenshot of MyTrust Mobile. So what are we going to inspect? We're going to divide this up into really 4 general areas, general categories there. The site itself, the use zones. How do the different play structures interact with each other? How much space is between one thing and another? The protective surfacing that the children may fall onto, and the equipment itself. All right, so let's keep going on this, because I said I've got to push through this. There's a lot of material. General site. A few things that I look at. What about stuff that's not supposed to be there? I see this on a regular basis as we take a look at parks. There will be some kids go out there and they are skateboarders, and they take a grind rail and they put it out in the playground, or some kids find some rocks and they haul those out into the playground. Look for general things like that. What's supposed to be there and what isn't supposed to be there. Occasionally I found where children have taken ropes out to the playground and tied those on the playground equipment. That's particularly dangerous because children could be hung on those ropes. And so with that kind of stuff, that's one of our first things, and those are easy things to take care of, right? Just get rid of those right now. Look for incompatible uses. Are we doing things in the area that don't get along? And when I say things like that, look at our playgrounds. Are we using do we have our disc golf goal is right by the playground? Are we going to whack kids on the head with that? Let's look at other things that we're doing out there. I've seen sometimes we put our wood chips in an area that doesn't work with other things that are in there. We may have a water feature or something, and the wind or kids take those wood chips and fill up the water feature, and so it plugs up pumps and all those kinds of things. Look at the general environmental conditions. Is this place appropriate? Some places, one place asked me one time, what is a good surface material for our playground? And I said, well, wood chips are kind of good because they give good protection, and they're relatively inexpensive compared to other types of systems. And then they called me up a year later and they were mad at me and they said, hey, when we flood irrigated our park, all of our wood chips floated away. Well, I didn't realize that they flood irrigated their park, but that's an environmental condition that really would be important. Some areas have a ton of wind, regular winds, canyon winds, that will blow wood chips away. So you may consider a different type of material for the environmental conditions that you have. Insects and animals and problems like that. Let's keep an eye out for those. Litter, broken glass, the vomit and the dog poop and the things like that around there. Those are general conditions that we're going to look at. And I threw this in here because I think everybody ought to have some cameras. And I know a lot of people don't like to have cameras on them all the time, but this is a public area. This is a play area. And this is a good way to help identify if we have some vandalism, to just maybe make people reconsider what they're doing if they know that they're on film. And there have also been a few times when we've been able to point out that an accident that happened, and maybe the claimants that were trying to sue one of your organizations. When we looked at the camera footage, we found out, hey, things didn't happen exactly the way they said, and we were able to protect our members through their due diligence in having good cameras there. So I threw that in just for a thought, because I think that's important. Okay. And Mike, I know there may be questions here, so just go ahead and shout at me anytime if we have something that comes up, and folks, type those into the chat box as well.
Oh, we're doing okay right now.
All right, great. Signage. There's some signage that all parks should have. Once again, I'd always like to say, use pictograms where you can. If we can use a picture, that's better than words, because not everybody can read and not everybody can read English, and kids are probably not going to take the time to read your signs. But we want to have some rules. We want to make sure that we're specifying that adults need to supervise. Now, most of your play structures should come with this signage, so make sure it's there. And there's going to be an age separation. In the ASTM standard, they divide, and also the CPSC, they divide it up between 2 to 5 years and 5 to 12-year age groups that these playgrounds are designed for. And they should be separate. Why? Well, kids are different. When you're 2 to 5, you're a little bit different shape and you have different abilities than kids that are 5 to 12 years old. So make sure it's posted who that's for. Our use zones are important. As we put playground equipment out, it interacts with other playground equipment. So if I've got a set of swings and I've got a merry-go-round and I've got a big play structure and all of those things, they need to be a certain distance apart. Now, there's a lot of detail that goes into this. But just in general, we need to have at least 6 feet between every play structure, every type of thing. Some things are different though. Swings are one that's really notable. Swings, we need to have 6 feet on the sides of the swings and 2.5 times the height of the top rail of that swing set in the distance of travel. So if Junior jumps out of the swing, they have plenty of distance there where they're not going to impact another piece of equipment. This is one of those use zones that can't be shared with another piece of equipment. Sometimes they can. As long as we got 6 feet between them, they're okay. But some places like swings, the exits to slippery slides, rotating equipment like a merry-go-round, we can't share those use zones. And so we've got to keep that in mind, that we've got to have enough space for those. And along with that use zone, we need to have our protective surfacing. What is it that the kids are going to fall on when they fall? Not if, it's when. They are going to take falls, and we don't want them to have head injuries. We realize that kids can fall down and they can get a boo-boo. And occasionally they may break a bone, falling even on okay protective surfacing. That's not what we're trying to prevent in putting our surfacing down. We're trying to prevent head injuries. We're trying to prevent things that could be fatal or really serious to those children. And so we put this surface material down to cushion those falls if a child were to take a fall and hit their head on that material. So you say, well, what do we do out there? You can see this merry-go-round's got nothing. That's actually, when I was a kid, it was even worse than that. We had asphalt was what we would have to fall on if we went off the merry-go-round. And so we put this material in the use zone, and there has to be enough of it, and it has to be okay. It has to provide enough fall attenuation to prevent injury. And so how do we go about doing that? Well, we measure how high is the equipment. What's the highest point upon which somebody could stand? And that's if you've got a 2-inch horizontal surface there. Basically, if I've got a set of swings, the top rail of the swings are my fall height. Well, we take that number and we compare it to the type of materials that we have. And this graph that's in here, maybe a little bit hard to see, comes out of the CPSC handbook, and they compare 9 inches of different materials, and then they say, here's the fall height that you can use this to. And what you'll see here is if I put sand out, 9 inches of sand, I got a fall height of 4 feet. Well, that works for some pretty simple playground equipment, but it ain't going to work for a set of swings. It isn't going to work for one of these big play structures. And so you can see that shredded recycled rubber or engineered wood chips will give you 10 feet of critical height. Well, what if I go higher than that? Well, we need to design that and make sure that it's appropriate. Okay, so I could spend a lot of time talking about surface material, but I want to sum it up here and say, because we're talking about inspections, enough material needs to be there. What does that mean? Well, generally we're going to start with at least a foot of this fall material. And so if you can see dirt, you can see gravel, rock sticking out, well, you don't have enough. You see where the swings are at the at the exit of the slippery side. It's been pushed out of the way. Well, that needs to be filled back up. So with that, regular maintenance needs to happen as we're doing our inspections. Look at the base. We've got a big structure, a play structure there. You look at the base, there will be a white sticker on those uprights with a black line, generally right up at the top of it. That is the level to which the fall material should be filled. And so fill that up. I talk about and do an annual refresh on that. Put that into your budget so we can do that annual refresh. So when you go out there and do your inspections, this probably not today because it's snowy, at least here in northern Utah, but next week when it warms up a little bit and you can do these inspections, we want to say, oh, okay, we're down. We consumed a little bit. It compacted over the winter time, so we're gonna come out. We're gonna till stuff, and we're also going to backfill. We're going to add a little refresh to that each year, so we have an adequate amount. So I put on here rake, till, and repeat. That's really what our maintenance should be, and what our inspections should look at is, do we have adequate fall material for that? That's probably one of our most common challenges that we have. I've talked a lot about wood chips. There are other surface materials that are available. There are some that are really low maintenance. There's some that have foam material that you put down, and then on top of that, they'll put some AstroTurf, and it's really low maintenance. It costs more money. It can be a little hotter to the feet if you're out there in bare feet, but the maintenance level on this goes way down. And I'm happy to talk to people about that if you're interested in that. Okay, let's talk about the equipment itself. There are some pieces of equipment that are banned. If you look in this picture, this is an old picture of one of the early pieces of playground equipment called a giant stride. And as you would go around, you would get lifted off the ground and you could kind of fly there. This was the first piece of banned equipment ever. And and actually we had one still in use in the state of Utah when I started working here at the trust. And it was banned a long time ago. Once again, I'll bring up this IPEMA. If we are buying equipment, it should be IPEMA certified. Then it meets the ASTM standards, and as well as the IPEMA standards. So make sure if we're going out to buy that, we want to do that. And if you're the inspector, take a look at what the equipment is, and they'll have a sticker on it that says it's IPEMA certified. Installation is important. I'm going to talk about each one of these, so I won't go into too much detail here. Let's jump on to this next. There's some equipment that we just shouldn't use. Be extremely careful. Well, I won't say do not use homemade equipment. This coming from a guy that my Eagle Scout project was to build some teeter-totters for my local community park. And I felt pretty bad the day they pulled those out, but it was the right thing to do. We want to make sure that we're using that IPEMA equipment. Don't use recycled equipment. And I know this is a frustration, but if the school district rips out a piece of playground equipment and says, hey, we'll donate this to the town, that may sound like a deal, but it's probably not. There's probably a reason the school district decided to take that out. It may not have been compliant, may have had problems with it. The big problem comes that when we try to reinstall that, things get bent. Things don't line up the way they are, and sometimes we can create really bad hazards with that. So I would more recommend go out and find a grant to help with those things. Repurchase equipment, and you're saying, how does this all apply to inspections? Well, you're going to be inspecting this equipment, and if we see some issues there, we need to be able to voice those concerns. Hey, this stuff is damaged. This equipment is a problem. If they've gone out and built a homemade piece of equipment like the one in the picture here, that's could be lethal. Things that are really heavy, like that swing or big heavy metal swings, multi-user swings. You remember the old 2-fro swings where you could get 2 or 3 kids on either side. Those are really heavy, and when somebody gets struck by that, it can really prove lethal. Rope swings and climbing ropes that are not attached on both ends. Those types of things can be dangerous as well. Swinging, these are like exercise rings with long chains on those things, or bars. We shouldn't have any of those. Swinging gates that can pinch fingers or smack kids. Trampolines are also banned equipment in that giant slide that we showed you there. Just buy that IPEMA IPEMA compliant equipment. I found this more of a amusement park ride that one of our members had early on when I started working at the trust, and my name is still held in infamy in this location because I made him get rid of the bomb ride. And I didn't make them. I pointed out the challenges that it had, and they made the right decision to get rid of it. But I'm the guy that made them get rid of it in this location. It had an electric motor running a car transmission, And I was trying to give them a little bit of leeway on it. I said, you know, how fast does this thing go? And they said, well, in first gear, it's pretty slow, but if you put it in third gear, that baby really flies. I said, I don't think that's the best thing to have in a public playground. All right. Installation. Like I said, manufacturer's instructions are really the rule here. So we have to make sure that the stuff is properly installed. And sometimes just changing an angle or a little distance can make it from a perfectly safe structure to something that has a lethal hazard there. Anchoring is really important to get that at the right level. So what am I getting at? Well, um, can we install our playground equipment ourselves? Yes, but it's really difficult to do it right. My recommendation is to always have a certified installer, a licensed installer that has a certified inspector come out and install that. If you can't get certified installers, then at least get an inspection in there. The best time to do that is when you're buying new equipment because you can build it into the purchase price. But always make sure that we get that inspection done on that equipment to make sure it meets all of the standards. All right. We're going to talk about some specific hazards. What do I look for when I'm out there when I'm out there on the playground taking a look? These are some of the, like we pointed out earlier, these are some of the things that can be fatal, some of the things that cause really serious injuries. Head entrapment is one of those. You probably don't have a set of these. I can't see if I can see that. I've got it all blacked out. We have these probes, and you can see it in the picture on the slide. These probes, if one will go through and the other one won't, that's a head entrapment hazard. That basically means that a child's torso can get through, but their head can't, and that could cause them to get hung. And that's one of those things that we have to look for. So if you have some older equipment, we definitely want to look at those things. But I've seen problems with installation. I've also seen problems with wear. I saw multiples. I hadn't seen this for in a lot of years, and then I found two or three within one summer where we had one of these hanging bridges. You've all seen those where you can walk and the boards are kind of will move around as you walk along there. Well, the bridge had become loose enough to the point where it had worn enough that it made an opening to where a child could get through, but their head couldn't, and they could get hung on that. And so we've got to look at existing equipment that looks like it's all okay, but it may have just worn. And so if you don't have a set of these probes, talk to us and we can, if we're in the neighborhood or if we've got something specific you want to look at, give us a call and we will take a look. I'm going to drop off some probes later today because one of our members is looking at some challenges in their playground to see if everything meets the standard. All right, entanglement, things where a piece of clothing could get caught, hooks or bolts that have threads sticking out, more than two threads exposed from a horizontal or greater angle. That is an entanglement hazard, and a hoodie or a drawstring on a hoodie, the hood on a hoodie or the drawstring on there could get caught around that, entangled, and hang a child. Open hooks, like you can see in this swing set, ropes, cords, leashes, all of those things. Just a sidelight on that. If you've got kids or grandkids out there, cut the strings off of those hoodies. And also, if they're playing on the playground, maybe consider a different type of jacket than a hoodie, because those things can get entangled. Impalement, lots of joyful things that we're talking about today. Things that stick out that could penetrate a child's body in one way or another. So bolts, parts. You look here on this spring rocker. Everybody remembers these horses or other animals that you'd climb on. Well, what about the handles on there? The size of that handle is small enough that it could actually penetrate an orbital socket, the eye of a child. If you're not paying attention and run into that, or it's swinging and hits you, that could be a problem as well. So we look for anything, a protrusion that could impale a child. And there's some measurements that you can do on that. But if you ever have a question, take a picture of it and text it to me, send it to Mike, and we can help you out on making a decision there. Look for sharp points and edges. Wood is bad stuff for playgrounds because it's so hard to maintain. Doesn't mean you can't have it, but you just really have to stay ahead of it. Sharp corners, edges, tires are also something that can be a challenge. And if we have a homemade homemade play equipment that involves tires, there may be steel belts in there, and those can puncture or cut a child. You'll notice that tires that are provided are not normal tires. They are not steel belted. They're actually produced just for playground equipment to be those bump stops. Crush and shear points. If I've got something where parts could be hinged, or rollers where fingers could be trapped, gaps on one of those bridges, we've got to watch for those. Can a child get their finger in there and get it pinched or even cut off? Things like shade. This is one, when I was a kid, we didn't go to the playground when it was hot out, but things have changed. Nowadays, playgrounds are used all around the clock. And so we have to look at our equipment. Burns can be really significant. They've done a lot of testing on different pieces of equipment, and sometimes temperatures can get well over 200 degrees on different types of plastics or metals. And so we've got to think about that. Some places, shade structures are appropriate. Down in Washington County, we see the vast majority of playgrounds down there, especially newly installed playgrounds, have shade structures. Up north here, it's not as much, but it's something that we should consider. At minimum, we should look at the orientation of our equipment. If there's something that might heat up in the sun, well, orient our equipment so it's away from the sun. Think about planting trees around there, or think about other shape structures for that. But take a look, is there a way that we can handle that in our inspections? Okay. All right. I had a lot of stuff to talk about. I would just recommend, if you're responsible for playground safety, a goal that you should have is to get certified as a certified playground safety inspector, a CPSI. This is a great course. It's Mike, is it 2.5 days, or I think it's 2.5 days.
Yeah, 2.5
Two and a
days.
half days.
It's a bear.
The half day is the test, and the test is challenging. I will admit that. I've taken a lot of tests, and it's a challenging thing. But it is a great learning experience there. Our Utah Recreation and Parks Association, URPA, sponsors this each year, and we highly recommend that you get somebody in your organization CPSI certified.
And we're hoping to have that training here at the trust, back at the trust in the fall.
Yeah. Hope. All right. So other things, we're getting close to rounding it out. When I identify stuff in my inspections, fix it. Put it on a work order, or fix it right now is the best. But put it on a work order and let's take care of it. Sometimes we have to take equipment out of service because it's damaged. It could be dangerous. Have a plan for that. Screwing on a piece of plywood on the bottom of the slide is not the way to do this. Let's think about how we can do it, and have the equipment available, whether it's construction fence, whether we put up posts or fences around our play structures, or a way that we can control that and have signage available. If we go out and write on a piece of cardboard, people don't take that as an official sign. But if we've got one like here, playground temporarily closed, and we could put some information on it, why that is and when we expect to open it, that would be great. But have a plan to take this stuff out of service and fix it. Some of these things, let me go back there. Some of these things are regular challenges. If you've got swings, we have wear points on those swings. and those bushings that are there are going to wear out. So buy some and have those in stock, so when we have an issue with those, we can just change those out, and make a plan ahead. Some challenges that we run into is that certain pieces of equipment just wear out over time, and then we can't find the parts to replace those. Well, let's look ahead for those things. Certain things like plastic slippery slides get broken. They get damaged, they get worn out. The sun damages them over time. If there's something we want to keep this play structure around, we should probably consider buying some replacement parts for those ahead of time and just have those available, so we don't get in a tight spot where, man, we just can't find equipment or find replacement parts for this equipment. So be smart about that. I forgot there was one slide I was going to put on here. There's a ton that we can talk about inspecting swings, and I don't have time to do that, but I have I think it was under 4-minute video that takes you through inspecting swings. It's on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search for Utah Local Governments Trust, and down in the middle of the page there's a little magnifying glass there. Search for swings, and we'll take you through all of inspecting swings. And that will help out there. And you guys knew that I couldn't get through a presentation without saying document, document, document. It is the critical step in this. Now, this is less about protecting kids and more about protecting our bottom line and not having to pay out. Should something happen, this is about liability, but it's a critical step to protecting our organizations, because you've done the right things. Let's be able to prove that if we're ever called out for not doing the right thing. So document, document, document. So these inspection forms can be great. A simple loose leaf binder, 3-ring binder that has some documents in there. You write down, I inspected this on this day. Here's what I found, or I repaired this piece of equipment, and put it in a folder. So we've got it if we ever have to use it. Let's hope we never do. And just to wrap up, here are a few things. What's lurking in your playgrounds? Here are some pictures of things that I personally have found over the years that just really scare me. I found this bolt that wasn't even supposed to be used in this application. The nut was gone and the chain was just barely hanging on. That was just waiting for a kid to fly out of that swing. Here's one. I don't even know how this happened, but that was a scary thing. How about this? This is an entanglement hazard that could kill a kid, could hang a kid. I already showed you this picture, but that one was just pretty atrocious as well. Here's one. This was an after the fact. After we had a kid fly out of a swing and shatter his leg. This is the result, or this is what led up to the result. Was a worn piece of equipment. You got to get up. You got to take these apart periodically. We've got to inspect. We got to know what's going on, because this kid didn't need to get hurt, and we didn't need to pay out a whole bunch of money to pay for his injuries. Had we just done the right thing and done the inspections and fixed the stuff when we found the problem. So, just in summary, plan, get out there, inspect. Fix it when you find it, and then document it, and we will have great opportunities for our kids to play and enjoy our playgrounds here and into the future, and we can sleep easy at night. So, all right, that's a lot of stuff there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Type those into the chat box. What do we got, Mike?
Just, folks are wondering if we can schedule a home inspection for their home playgrounds.
That's a good question. So they're actually different. There are different standards for residential equipment and public play equipment. And sometimes we'll see they'll go to, and I'm not picking out an individual company, but Lifetime makes a lot of great residential playground equipment. And there's an outlet store not too far from where we are in North Salt Lake. And that's kind of stuff is great for your home, but it shouldn't be in a public playground. Sometimes we'll see that stuff creep in because it's quite a bit cheaper than it is to buy a piece of equipment that is a IPMA certified, but we don't want that out there because it doesn't meet the standards. So I guess it depends on inspecting your home. Will there be barbecue involved? Because
Yeah, exactly. If there's barbecue involved, we
if
can
there's
we can make it
barbecue
happen.
involved, we could probably make that happen. Anything else, Mike, that we got question wise?
Nope, that's it. That's all we got right now.
Okay. Tons. Like I said, there is a lot more to this than just what we've talked about today. But we would love to discuss this with you. If you would like us to take a look at your parks, let us know. It may not be tomorrow. We have to work. We have the entire state of Utah, and so we'll schedule around as we're in the neighborhood. However, I'm going to be on the road next week, and Mike will be on the road the week after that, hitting a lot of the eastern and southern part of the state. So if you're there, if you're right in the neighborhood, give us a call here, and we're happy to help out. Mike, anything you wanted to add? Mike's an illustrious CPSI as well.
No, I mean, I think you've really hit it really good. Is just getting out there and inspecting and not doing it from the truck. We've had so many folks go around and they just look at it from the truck. Yeah, we're good, but they've never gotten out and walked the equipment and gotten on the even. I mean, get up on the structure, get up on the play structure, put yourself in a 3-year-old shoes, and could a 3-year-old get hurt on this? Don't band-aid these things together, because when we start to band-aid things, that's when they really start to fall apart.
Sure. Well, thank you, folks. Appreciate all of your
um,
time and
we
attention. Oh,
we will send out copies of the slides, and the playground checklist. We'll send out copies of those with
and
the
and the
announcement that this
CPSC
recording's up.
manual as well. Yep, we will send that out.
Yeah.
That may not normally I try to get these on the YouTube channel, get the recording on the YouTube channel and the emails out. That may not happen this afternoon. I normally try to get it out the same day, but I've actually got a couple of appointments I've got to get to after this, and so probably tomorrow is when you'll get those.
So just one last quick question before we let everyone go. There's folks. The question is that they have a zip line that says 5 to 12 years old, but a lot of older kids have used it and broke it when the adults were on it and busted it. How do you keep people off of it? If it's 5 to 12 years old, that's what it said it's for. How do you keep the
That's a real good question, and it's not just a zip line. It's misuse in general, and some of the things that I'll say around that are one, cameras help us a lot. But the other side of things is use law enforcement. If you see kid, I mean, it's easy for the parks person to go out there and growl at the teenagers because they're misusing the equipment. Um, but it means a lot more if the police come out and have a serious conversation with those people. It
Mhm.
also gives us a document trail that, hey, when there are problems, we bring in law enforcement. For a lot of you out there, the police department is part of your organization. It's fairly easy to just call the other department and say, hey, can you come out and talk to these people about what they're doing out there? It's a hard thing, and some things go down to the type of equipment that we purchase. We want to look at durability. Some of those things are just a zip line is far more prone to uh, older people who should know better,
Yeah.
participating and causing damage to those things. So I hate having to give that answer, but sometimes that's what it is. Let's take a look at what we're putting in our parks, and be smart about that, or just plan for, hey, we were going to have a lot more wear and damage on this because of the type of equipment it is. And if you ever have a question, hey, we're thinking about a new park. What kind of or what do you think about this equipment? Because there's always the newest, latest, and greatest equipment that's out there. What do you think? We're happy to share our opinions and what we've seen. at parks around the state. There are some pieces of equipment that are just junk. There are others that are awesome and they'll last you a long time and really give you good service there. There are some new pieces of equipment that scare me because I'm like, I don't know how this meets the standard. And we'll definitely have those discussions with you and guide you the best that we can.
Yeah. And if I can just add one thing really quick on that, it's just having, I mean, even if it's just your parks maintenance staff, even if they just the presence there, right? Just their truck there, even if it's for 5 minutes, where they walk around, they do the walk around inspection, or they're looking for trash or whatever it is, just have it be part of their route that they stop at the park and park the truck there, and even just sit there and do something and watch or whatever. Just the presence of the vehicle or the presence of somebody from the city is a lot of times enough to keep those idiots off your equipment when they shouldn't be.
And I didn't talk about signs on that as well, but signage should be there. So then there's no question on that, this is intended for children 12 and under, and
Mhm.
and adults grow up.
Yeah. One last question. It looks like, is there a way to check to see if an entity like a city or a county has scheduled an inspection?
Scheduled an inspection with the trust, is that you think that's
I'm
the
not.
question?
I'm not sure. I Yeah, schedule it with the trust if they have
If you've
scheduled it
scheduled,
with
if
us.
you're wondering if you scheduled with the trust, give us a call.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can call Mike or myself or email us and we can definitely look at that.
we
Uh,
can let you know if they've
and,
scheduled
and
it or if
we
we
can
need to schedule it for you.
and we can schedule. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. And anytime if you've got a question, or you can text us or send us a picture and say, hey, what about this? And we're happy to take a look at that stuff and give you our best guess. So, okay. Thanks, folks. Sorry that went longer. I tried hard.
No,
I really
that
appreciate.
was excellent.
Yeah, appreciate all of your efforts out there, folks. This is an honorable thing that you're doing, making good places for our kids to go have fun and do it in a safe way. That's a great thing, and I appreciate all that you do out there. And for everybody, go out and have a safe day. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.